Hi, I'm Kelly Hall. Welcome to Coffee Conversations. The Longview Chamber has been in business since 1916. Why? To be the voice of business, to act on your behalf as a business. So we're filming a few different videos the next couple of weeks. We're going to be discussing the upcoming bond election. And I have invited Councilwoman Kristen Ishihara, our Chamber Chairman Richard Manley, and a great volunteer of ours, Gary Ford, to visit with you and walk you through the opportunity that is in front of Longview. But we need your help. We need you to vote yes in the upcoming bond election. Will you join me, please, as we welcome Kristen Ishihara, Richard Manley, and Gary Ford.
Hello, I'm Richard Manley. It's been my pleasure to serve as the chairman of the Board of Directors for the Chamber of Commerce over the past 2 years. And I have two guests with me today. We're going to talk about the upcoming bond election. On my left is Kristen Ishihara. She's an elder law attorney here in Longview, serving her second term on the council. I had the great pleasure of working with her on the council for a couple of years. And then Gary Ford from Network IP. He's one of the directors over there, and we're really blessed to have both of them sitting with us here today to discuss the upcoming bond election. Let's start out with just some of the basics of when it's going to be and the logistics of where someone can vote or for the bond election. So you want to take that one?
Sure. So the bond election will be on Tuesday, November 6th. It'll be with our general voting. So like you're used to going voting, all of the city voting will be done through the county polling locations. So you'll look on Gray County for that information. It's an important time to vote for all sorts of different things, and the city election will be included with that general population vote on Tuesday, November 6th, with early voting starting in October.
So just for clarification, if someone lives in District 4, they'll go to where they normally vote in a District 4 election?
Yes. Yeah, all the polling locations will be the same.
Will that include also the courthouse, the county courthouse?
Yes, early voting will still be at the courthouse.
Great. Okay, thanks. Gary, let me address this one to you, all right? I know you both were working on a fairly good-sized committee that came up with this proposal that the voters are going to be considering. Give us an idea of how this whole thing came about and how you came to the conclusions that you did.
Sure. Well, it really originated with a comprehensive plan several years ago.
Light reading.
Yeah. And each council person selected two members from their district, and we were really charged with going through the list of priorities that were selected by the citizens of Longview, and really paring those down and not using our own opinions, but almost acting as junior council people, if I may, and soliciting feedback from people in our community within our district where we work. Myself, I live in District 4, but I spend probably half my life in District 3 working, playing, all that kind of good stuff. So really just soliciting feedback from everyone.
So what I'm hearing you say is this wasn't necessarily just fed to you by, say, city staff or a long list. This was a combination of both input from citizens, both on the committee and off the committee.
Correct.
As well.
And I'd actually, Richard, if I can add something, I'm sure you're able to talk very eloquently as well about the comprehensive plan and how that came to be. Sometimes people will ask me about the bond election, well, hey, why can't we add this? Or why can't this be on there? Why can't we, why can't this be included? And it's not well known about how long this has really been going on. So the comprehensive plan was adopted in March of 2015, but the planning for that started at least 3 years prior. I was not a part of the comprehensive plan group that created that, but that group made that giant list of priorities based on community feedback. So when people ask me about how the projects came to be for the bond, I say it's been in process for more than 5 years through our comprehensive plan.
I'd love to speak to that. I'll give some kudos to our city staff. One of the things that Keith Honey and I, as the co-chairs of that committee back in, as you said, 2012, that came from an inner city visit, shameless plug for the chamber, inner city visit to Chattanooga, Greenville, South Carolina, and others who'd had comprehensive plans of their own, that the real key to success was, okay, you do all this work, you create the plan, do you actually follow the plan? And I've been very pleased, even though I haven't been on the council the last few years, the couple of years that I was, and what I've seen since is that every time something like this comes up, it is, does this follow the comprehensive plan? And it seems to me that we are doing that,
Right.
which is what our citizens ask us to do. I've heard many times that plans have been developed in the past and they just get put on the shelf. And it sounds to me like we really are, again, trying to follow a comprehensive plan. So let me ask a question representing our membership. The Chamber has over 1,100 members, everything from one-man shops, mom-and-pop businesses, all the way up to some of our largest employers here. I'll ask this just to both of you, and whoever wants to take it first. What's in it for the small business owner, and what's in it for the large employer who might be trying to attract talent from Dallas or Houston to come to Longview, as well as grow their own business? Why would they want to support the bond issue?
Good. Do you want to go first?
I'll start. So one of the things that came out of the comprehensive plan was to revitalize our downtown and the major thoroughfares that lead to downtown. And so that was heavily discussed, and a couple of the items on there were to update both Moberly and Green Street and how that really connects the I-20 corridor to Laterno to downtown and just really cleans up that whole area, and hopefully we'll revitalize that with retail and anything else. But it just also just spruces everything up to where people are coming in to visit our town. It's just a nice, clean thoroughfare into our downtown.
Let me interject something too. So when you say I-20, Laterno, and downtown, everything in between, again, following the comprehensive plan, sounds very familiar. And then I know that the council employed the same consultants to have small area plans developed just for downtown and just for I-20. And again, these projects seem to be coming from the results of those small area plans.
Yep, that's exactly right. I would, so I've had a couple of opportunities to go and present on what we've done with the comprehensive plan. Just like you said, we've not put it on a shelf and walked away from it. There are several smaller things that we've put in place already that we're able to do without having a bond election, but say hiring a parks director, focusing more on parks and making things more in Longview more aesthetically pleasing, tearing down demolished and dilapidated buildings. We've added to that budget and designated staff for that. So we've been making small strides. We've just gotten to the point where, a stride to build a $33 million police station is not something we could do as part of our general budget. But we have been working diligently to meet the comprehensive plan priorities and what we've heard the community say that they wanted to have.
Okay, great. Well, that's a good segue for the next question I wanted to ask, and that is, why now?
Why now? Good, yeah, excellent question. So we approved the comprehensive plan in 2015, and as Gary mentioned, there's been a committee that's been working and meeting regularly since that time. And as a result of the work of the committee, our task was, make sure we put this into play for the community. Let's not, ignore these things. We know their needs. Let's not kick the bucket down the road for the next group of people to be dealing with. So we met in subcommittees, which were broken up into the ways that you actually see the bond is going to be presented: public safety and facilities, parks, and infrastructure.
So there's 3 separate votes, is that
There
correct?
are. That's correct. There will be 3 separate bond elections in November. Each of those groups came up with their top lists of what they saw as priorities based on feedback from the community, the comprehensive plan, city staff, their own research, and our own visits. We went out and visited facilities, did our own work on what we believe needed to be included as priorities. And then those groups came together and made an overall recommendation. Here are the things that we've heard the community say that are needed. Most of them have, tickets, price tags on them that are not something that could be included in the city's general operating budget.
Sure.
And so we recommended from our comprehensive plan committee to city council that those 3 segments be put out for bond election. And the council approved all of those, and those are what you see on the November ballot.
Okay. If I could expand, just one thing that you touched on is we didn't just go through this and solicit public feedback, but we had the parks director come and the police chief come and the fire chief come, and we went on visits. And so we heard firsthand from the people that this is going to directly affect as far as their day-to-day operations, and really hear the need for that. And then we can translate that into quality life improvements for our city, and just added security and things like that. So I just wanted to expand on that.
I don't like to come at things from a negative. It's just the kind of guy I am. But at the same time, I'd probably like to ask the question that would be a follow-up to what you were just touching on, and that is, what happens if we don't do this?
Well, just myself walking through the police department, the working conditions that those guys are in, regardless of, are there enough police officers on the street and those kinds of things, but those guys were crammed in cubicles. I mean, there's as many people right here in a cubicle, and
we laugh about it, but I remember there's one fellow who's actually working out of a broom closet.
Yeah, and so you think about, you want our city to be safe, and then we're trying to attract people to that job, and they go see where they're going to work. Like, it's just
What's been a really big community issue for the past several years, public safety, right? That's what everybody's been talking about. What do we need to do? We've increased our police force. We increased the pay that we pay the police officers, and we've made a really big effort to show them support. Let's not stop now.
Same thing goes for the fire department. Some of those are so old that they don't have separate living quarters for male and female, because they were built prior to when females were routinely in that occupation. And so now they're having to carve up, living quarters for both male and female, and restrooms and everything that goes along with that. So it goes to both, police and fire. And if I may speak to just the quality of life stuff, obviously a lot of that stuff isn't needed. It's wants, but it's if you think about myself, who have young children, and someone who moved back to Longview after college, I want my children to do the same thing if they don't go to Laterno or Kilgore, one of the local universities, or even if they don't go to university, I want them to stay here. And so thinking long term for all those quality of life improvements, parks and trails and those kinds of things, that's just going to attract people to come back, young people to come back, so we have a vibrant, reoccurring workforce. And then also, the businesses that are here that are currently trying to attract young,
Well, it's funny, I'm almost 64, and I hear you say we're trying to attract the young people, but when you go out on the Paul Borman Trail, there's a lot more guys with gray in their hair out there walking on that trail. Of course, you guys are at work, and we're not. But I brought one of the recent editions of D Magazine and was showing it to Kristen just a moment ago. And not that we need to do something the same way Dallas does it, but they go into great detail here about how, as a city, they are trying to create a sense of place. And that's what's attracting, I think, the youngsters who are moving back to big cities. And not just because the jobs are there, it's because cities are making that type of investment, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
And so that's what we're talking about doing here as well. Well, listen, I want to wrap this up, and I want to thank you both for being here. But I wanted to also give you a chance to say anything you'd like to add that folks watching might want to know. So, ladies first.
I did want to talk a little bit just about the specific items that'll be on each bond election. So for the public safety piece, there will be the police station, which will be a totally new construction. It'll be the purchase of land there, and then also included would be the cost of renovating some of the current police station to house all of our city facilities. So right now, the city has outgrown our space in multiple areas, and so we're paying rent annually, which is obviously a waste of money. And so if we were able to bring those offices into city-owned buildings, then we'd be able to save additional money each year. So under that, public safety and facilities is the police building itself, 3 fire stations, either new constructions or renovations, a renovation of City Hall, and then also very important to some members of our community, moving the training facility that the fire department currently uses in Stamper Park. That has been an issue for many, many years. That's in a residential area, and our fire department has world-class, well-known trainings that people come all around the U.S. to attend for tank car burnings and our fire building. But they put on national seminars for safety, and they've been doing it in Stamper Park, which is in a residential area. Part of this bond package would allow purchase of new land and moving that burn building and that training facility out of Stamper Park into a new training facility, which eventually could be added onto. So
That's
that
very
would be
popular with that
It is
neighborhood, I'm
very
sure.
popular, yeah. So that would be phase one of that training facility that we'd hope to house fire and police someday, but would really be great to be able to move that out of that neighborhood. So that's the public safety and facilities bond package there in a nutshell. For parks, so the parks piece of the bond election includes finishing Lear Park. So when we did Lear Park, we initially started that with a bond election, and it was also phased. So this would be completing phase 3 of Lear Park, as well as adding some additional things that we've determined are helpful to bringing tournaments to Lear Park. As you know, Lear Park is a generator for us of tourism dollars. So when people come to tournaments, they stay in hotels, they eat at our restaurants. So that's something we want to encourage to help build our community and the sales tax revenue that we get from that. So completing Lear Park, renovating Broughton, which is on MLK, doing a $5 million investment into that facility.
It's a very heavily used park,
It
in my
is.
experience.
It is.
A lot of folks use that park.
That's right. Good programs in the summer, something we need to make sure we invest in and make better for that community. Redoing Cargill Trail. So the trails, we will soon have 10 miles of continuous trails, which is very exciting. That funding has been provided through a grant received by the state, as well as some funds from our Economic Development Corporation. But we will soon have 10 miles of continuous trail in Longview, but about 2.5 of those are trails on Cargill, which is an asphalt trail that's been there for more than 30 years and just needs to be redone. So that would include replacing and redoing that with asphalt. It would also include about 7 parks would get an update to their facilities, not just the park equipment, but the park itself. And those lists are available online if you'd like to look at what parks those are. And then also including some funds for the Arboretum to help finish renovating that building. So when they're ready to open for business, they have everything that they need to make that
Again,
a
that's
real
contiguous
destination.
with Mod Cobb and with the Green, which
Yep.
are both, again, heavily used parts of our city. Too.
Yes, exactly right. So that's all the parks. And then the infrastructure package includes turning Mobberley into complete street. So on the comprehensive plan, we talked a lot about complete streets and about how that can help that area of town turn into an area where people are more likely to frequent because the street has sidewalks, it has green spaces, it's just a more pleasant area to be.
Bike lanes.
Bike lanes, that's right. So the idea would be that we're helping business develop there, but we're also working on our entryway. So part of that includes also doing the entryway there at Mobberley. As you're coming into town, say I'm going to visit Laterno, I'm coming into town, and then I travel all the way up to downtown to go visit one of our new businesses happening there, that I've got a really positive experience coming into Longview. And then it also includes redoing Fairmont and Railroad, which have just totally failed and so need to be redone as streets important to those neighborhoods. So that's...
I'm excited for the entry to the city. I think we all have heard people complain about there's no good way to come into Longview, especially from I-20. And I think that's a big plus. I'm sure the folks that live in South Longview and work in South Longview will be excited about that as well.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, thanks. Gary, was there anything you wanted to add?
Sure. I just wanted to just reiterate that all of these items were came out of citizen input, were heavily vetted through myself and the Comprehensive Plan Action Committee, and then again vetted through City Council. And so these aren't just random things that we think would be good. These are all based on input from citizens of Longview. And for those that may be on the fence or are already opposed to maybe some of these items because, I don't live on that part of town, or I don't use the parks, or whatever it is, I just highly suggest you think of the big picture. Step back, and maybe you don't use the parks, but if that park update attracts someone to move to town, that's someone else that's paying property tax that's going to go back into the city and city improvements and just make Longview a better place down the road. And and you can talk to me, and I'll convince you otherwise.
That's exactly right. And so I think one of the great things about this is there is something on there for everybody. But as an individual, you can probably pick out something you're really excited about and then something you're like, not super excited about that. I don't use that. But so that's a great point, Gary. What we're trying to do is just raise all the ships. Everything in Longview is going to improve because we are putting these things into place for not just ourselves, but for the continuation of Longview for our families, for everybody that's going to live in Longview after us.
These are the kind of things that we wish that our fathers and grandfathers had done 30 and 60 years ago. And I think this is very visionary. I want to congratulate you both for the work you did. Thank you for your service, both of you. And we're excited to see what happens with the upcoming bond election. Thank you for being with us today. Don't hesitate to call Kristen or Gary or here at the Chamber if you have any questions about the bond issue. Thanks very much.